Well, hello. It's so great to see you all and to be here today. And welcome to our symposium, Shattered Mirrors, New Visions. I'm honored to be standing in front of you today sharing the culmination of my research in this MPED program. I trust that you can hear me okay. Yeah, good, okay. I want to thank my family, to my lovely wife and kids who've supported me with the gift of time. I want to thank my cohort, James and Kayanne, for being amazing critical friends throughout the program. We are a small but mighty group. To Brent and Candace de Bossiguet for their mentorship and their wisdom, and to all my professors along the way who've guided my learning and supported me in this journey. It's an honor to stand on the shoulders of giants, namely the scholars that have inspired me in this work and who've helped me come to a deeper understanding of myself and my positionality as a settler Canadian working in Indigenous education. My name's, as JP said, my name's Abe Drennan. I'm 47 years old, a non-Indigenous teacher researcher of Irish and Scottish descent. I'm a proud father of 4 beautiful children, have been married for 17 years, and the oldest of 4 siblings. I grew up on Anishinaabe land associated with Treaty 27, or the Rideau Purchase of 1822, in Gilmore, Ontario, just northeast of Peterborough in the Bancroft area. For the last 12 years, and currently, I live and work on Inuvialuit and Gwich'in land in the Beaufort Delta region of the Western Arctic, in a town called Inuvik in the Northwest Territories. Inuvik is located above the Arctic Circle, just about a 3-hour drive. So as JP mentioned, I'm an arts educator. I love theater and acting, and I'm also a singer-songwriter. And I wrote a song about my experience and research that I'll share with you at the end of my presentation. I took 4 planes over 3 days to be here with you today. If I'd driven the 7,000 kilometers, I'd probably be somewhere in Alberta right now. So yeah, you're pretty important. And so is my Timmies. I haven't had one in about a year. Poor me, right? Yeah. 2 years of a master's program is no joke. And blood, sweat, and tears have gone into my work, and I'm so grateful to be able to be here with you today. Welcome to my presentation. I've titled Dismantling the Colonial Mind, A Path to Discovering Our Common Humanity. This is a critical look at bias, racism, and Indigenous resurgence. Why does this work matter? Given the times that we're currently living in, I don't want to live in fear and isolation. I want to live in connection, in community, because there is unity. Where there is unity, there is strength. I believe that it's more important now than ever to find our common ground as human beings, to discover our common humanity, and prioritize those things that bring us together, not drive us apart. In the spring of 2013, when I first stepped off the plane, eager to start my teaching career, I felt the crunch of the hard-packed snow under my feet and basked in the warmth of the midnight sun. I was taken back by the raw beauty of the northern landscape. I could feel the wild encroaching and imagined all sorts of critters, large and small, just beyond my reach among the stunted northern pine. Little did I know, the journey I was about to take would be life-changing. The North is breathtaking. The Inuvialuit and Gwich'in people, truly genuine, hospitable, resilient, and kind. They welcomed me and my family with open arms, and for the last 12 years, we've lived a beautiful life in Inuvik. But it wasn't always easy. I've had to face hard truths, and the realization of these truths are why I stand here today. As the United States of America clings desperately to its Constitution and its democratic foundations, colonial, capitalist, and individualistic values are currently driving it deep into authoritarianism. Immigrants face strict deportation threats. Indigenous communities continue to face systemic oppression. And the LGBTQ+ community faces executive orders denying them their right to exist. While climate disasters like wildfires and floods displace people across Canada and the US, these crises signal a deeper imbalance. We're living in complex times. With these interlocking challenges, I believe that we need to mobilize a shift in consciousness and a unification of diverse people to be able to manage the complexities of the future. We are a diverse people, but we are one humanity. Every language and every culture has something to teach us. I believe that multiracial, multi-faith, multi-generational perspectives are what we need to solve these complex problems. So how do we find our common humanity? How can we do this with respect and listen with empathy? I pose this question because there's a systematic and structural force that continues to drive division, oppression, and inequality in our society. True notions of unity and equality are constantly being challenged. We see this in the US government's recent rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. So let's dive in. What is the colonial mind? In the summer of 2023, amid my coursework in this program, I was walking my dog, as I do, on the outskirts of town. I found myself grappling with Marie Battiste's 2013 notion of cognitive imperialism and colonial constructs like implicit bias, white privilege, and how they contribute to the maintenance of structural racism, and also remain largely invisible to those who benefit from them. The scholars were slowly revealing to me the inner workings of my colonial mind. The realization that I had lived my entire life with unconscious bias and never fully integrated the meaning of white privilege or structural racism shocked and motivated me. I was inspired to conduct qualitative research through a literature review, self-study, and autoethnography to uncover the implicit and structural forces behind division and inequality. My research explores imperialism and colonialism as root causes of implicit bias, white privilege, and racial discrimination, all of which sustain structural racism and the colonial mindset. To challenge these forces, I draw on my lived experiences and apply concepts of Indigenous resurgence to build a bridge over the wall of structural racism. This is where hope lies. Indigenous resurgence, grounded in relationality, oral traditions, reciprocity, and interconnectivity, emphasizes restoring relationships and dismantling colonial systems in transformative ways. By approaching others with kindness and reciprocity, we break down barriers, build bridges, and cultivate deeper connections. Indigenous resurgence invites us to reconnect with each other, the earth, and our shared humanity. I'm very truly excited to share this beautiful vision with you. I watched the dark-haired boy with the long ponytail standing alone on the football field. He was unkempt, dirty, and wearing discount shoes from the local department store. He paced nervously near the equipment shed, and I kept an eye on him from behind the bars of my football helmet. Part of me urgently wanted to talk to him, to at least say hello, sensing his anxiety. But fear held me back. I worried the other boys might tease him. But just like the other times I saw or witnessed high school injustice, I knew I could crack a smile to show whose side I was on. I was too afraid to stand out or stand up. And I never saw the boy again. And to this day, I wish I'd spoken with him. I'll never forget the mystery that surrounded him, something unsettling. My curiosity about who he was and where he came from grew, and little did I know, it was his land that I was digging up with my cleats. The boy's isolation and invisibility are a reflection of broader societal structures that sustain exclusion, inequity, and oppression. The fear I felt in that moment, the fear of standing out and going against ingrained high school hierarchies, is a mirror of the fear that maintains oppressive structures in society. Today, the same system continues to reinforce inequity and marginalization. This work has been both challenging and transformative. I realize that due to my implicit biases and privileges, I've unknowingly upheld colonial values and contributed to structural racism. Although I never considered myself racist, my biases shaped by harmful stereotypes have reinforced a system established as early as the 15th century. This humbling realization has come after 12 years of reflection and exposure to indigenous ways of knowing, forcing me to look inside. Colonialism is not just history. It's a living system that continues to shape our world today. Rooted in imperialist ideologies, colonialism was the tool through which European powers like Britain and France expanded wealth and control, subjugating land and people. These ideas are embedded so deeply in our institutions and unconscious minds that they seem natural and inevitable. And they are, only if we allow them to be. Structural racism is a deeply embedded system of power in societal structures, upheld by institutional policies that perpetuate hierarchy, inequity, and racism. It exists in institutional governance, gentrification, historical segregation, disproportionate incarceration rates for racialized communities, and education that marginalizes Indigenous and Black histories. NAIR 2022 argues that a sustainable future requires reimagining these structures. This shift demands privileged individuals confront their biases and rethink their roles in creating a just world. Change at the macro level starts with micro-level shifts in communities, families, and individuals. To understand the lasting effects of imperialism and colonialism, we must recognize how all these forces are interconnected. They create a self-perpetuating cycle of inequality, resistant to change, and persisting across generations. A seemingly impenetrable system. Note here, this model illustrates the cyclical nature of the colonial mind. At first, I saw my role as a settler teacher as just education. Over time, like layers of an onion peeling away, I realized I was part of something much deeper. At first, I struggled with guilt and confusion about my role. I felt distant, burdened by history, and fearful of making mistakes. I also recognize that ingrained stereotypes lingered beneath the surface. Through relationships with Indigenous colleagues and friends, elders, land-based experiences, community gatherings, professional development, and just sharing music and food and laughter and tears, layers of colonial conditioning gradually peeled away. When an elder told me, "You'll make mistakes, and that's okay," it gave me permission to walk with a lighter step. I learned that by asking questions and embracing mistakes, I was welcomed, trust grew, and relationships deepened. Elders always have something profound to teach us. And we recently lost two incredible, caring, and wise men in our community in Inuvik. There's a funeral today for an Inuvialuit elder who was a close friend of mine. I send my condolences to the family and wish him beautiful and safe passage to wherever he goes next. Maybe he'll get to ride the schooners again with his father on the Beaufort Sea and the Great Mackenzie River. There was a colleague who often stopped by my classroom to play guitar. Drawn to the instrument I always kept on a stand in the front of my classroom. In my early years of teaching, I would stay late prepping, and he'd play on his breaks, sometimes without a word between us. One day he took me fishing and gifted me hand-tied flies and bone guitar picks. And since then, every spring, his family has invited us to share a meal of traditional food. It's always a special time of music and connection. And when I reflect on my relationship with my colleague and his family, they share what they have when they can. And this relationship helps me to reflect on my own action and motivates me to do the same. I continue to practice slowing down, asking for help, and accepting my imperfections. And today, with the guidance of community, I use arts education to integrate Indigenous languages, stories, and traditions into my teaching. My journey is one of ongoing self-reflection and action, challenging my biases, and continually unlearning. I've come to understand that the colonial mindset begins to unravel through deep reflection and the cultivation of reciprocal relationships. My close friendship with a late Inuvialuit elder, whom I will refer to as Joseph to respect his privacy, showed me that no matter our past, it is through uncommon friendships that we break down internal barriers and find our common humanity. I first saw him talking to my son in the hallway at school. He was playing the down low, too slow game with him, swiftly moving his hand away from my boy's attempts. I approached them and introduced myself, and there was some hearty laughter exchanged and a twinkle in his eye. He teased my son, calling him the slowest one in Inuvik. And from then on, every time they crossed paths, Joseph would play the game with him. Our friendship grew through visits and meaningful phone conversations. And every Christmas, he gifted us a turkey, ham, and stuffing, his annual elder's donation from the local grocery store, insisting we take it, though he had little himself. Joseph gave each of my family members Inuvialuit names, including myself, adopting us and welcoming us into his culture. Through his generosity, humor, and vulnerability, he forced me to confront my own biases, fostering empathy and a connection I will always carry to him, his family, and the Inuvialuit people. Joseph's vulnerability showed me that we have shared experiences, struggles, and joys. His bravery in showing up for me and my family forced me to consider how I do that for him. He showed me that it is through these uncommon friendships that we break down barriers. Dismantling implicit bias is crucial for the fostering of genuine relationship. To engage with this kind of work, we must first recognize that the primary relationship we have is to ourselves. This primary connection is the first step in creating a harmonious, interconnected global community. So how do we dismantle it? While walking through town one day, I was on the phone with a friend who complained about an Indigenous radio host speaking slowly. A flicker of judgment rose in me, and I instinctively agreed, finding it annoying. In that moment, I reinforced a harmful stereotype, one I knew was untrue. Yet instead of challenging the bias, I validated it. That sunny June afternoon, my implicit bias surfaced. And since then, I've confronted and rejected that prejudice, recognizing it as both racially biased and false. Greenwald and Banerjee argue that implicit bias is universal, unconsciously shaping decisions and behaviors that sustain systemic inequality. These biases are embedded through cultural messages, historical narratives, stereotypes, and personal experiences. Dismantling these biases requires intentional practice, and through reflexivity, empathy, curiosity, vulnerability, and courage. Ed Goose et al. 2019 suggests that biases are malleable and can be reduced through 3 key strategies: educate, expose, and approach. I recommend exploring these further if you're interested. For me, confronting my biases has meant facing difficult truths. A pivotal moment came during a professional development session led by a respected colleague. I was introduced to the concept of intergenerational trauma. The idea that trauma passes through generations, shaping children's lives before they are born. I realized my students weren't acting out against me. They were carrying the trauma of their parents, grandparents, and ancestors, shaped by residential schools and forced assimilation. That understanding softened my heart, helping me see that I had often taken their behavior too personally. It shifted my perspective and strengthened my commitment to centering relationships in my teaching. This work is deeply introspective. I've become aware of how unconscious racism surfaces in me as a sensation, a brief, unsettling flutter of judgment or criticism. When I notice it, I pause and ask myself, what am I feeling? And why? Is this reaction justified? And where did it come from? Then, I actively dismantle the bias, rationalizing my way out of the thought pattern, rejecting it, and replacing it with a more constructive perspective. Like building a muscle, this practice becomes easier the more I engage with it. Eberhardt 2019 reminds us that even the most well-intentioned people hold racial biases. Without reflection and deliberate action, these biases can lead to discrimination. Recognizing this has fueled my commitment to ongoing reflection and growth. I often sat in my colleague's classroom, who I will refer to as Jolene, listening as she shared her family's experiences with residential schools and intergenerational trauma. We shed tears together, and all I could do was listen fully and openly. I felt honored by her willingness to share. And one day she said, "No wonder the colonizers took us over. We're so nice to everyone." Jolene's both a mentor and a friend. teaching me her language and encouraging me to reach out. Her humor and vulnerability continue to inspire me. This relationship has shown me that storytelling and active listening foster mutual understanding. In vulnerable exchanges, stereotypes crumble and biases dissolve. This is a foundational element in building trust and requires continuous intentional effort. Yet, vulnerability is often feared more than conflict. Brown, 2012, reminds us that vulnerability is bravery, stating, it's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Indigenous resurgence teaches that knowledge must be lived. It's not just about understanding relationships, but embodying them in connection with others and the earth. Thinking 7 generations ahead, colonial constructs can begin to dismantle. Biases are universal, and as privileged white people, it's our responsibility to do the work and choose a different path from the one we inherited. The bridge out of the racism feedback loop or colonial mindset starts with considering other worldviews and taking actionable steps. By doing so, the seemingly impenetrable wall of structural racism weakens, allowing light to shine through the cracks and illuminate a path of reconnection. This model here, if you can see, it illustrates how elements of strong relationships and constructs of Indigenous resurgence can be a bridge to dismantling the colonial mind. My relationships in this northern community have revealed the power of stories, listening, vulnerability, reciprocity, and ultimately love for ourselves, others, and the planet. Through the principles of Indigenous resurgence, building relationships, listening to stories, considering future generations, and reconnecting with the natural world, we can foster meaningful transformations. There are steps that we can take to move forward in this work, and at an individual level through bias, self-checks, and reflection, at an institutional level through curriculum changes and racial equity training, and at a community level through music, theater, storytelling, and activism. I just invite you to reflect for a moment. Which of these strategies do you already practice, and which one feels the hardest? Kayete 2000 describes the land as a living soul and explains that spirit and matter are one and the same. He argues that our responsibility is to the land, each other, and all living things. My work reflects my non-Indigenous settler perspective and lived experience as a teacher in a northern community. Just a stepping stone in my journey. I've undertaken this research so that my children won't have to, allowing them to learn from my mistakes and see my vulnerability as strength. I want them free from the colonial systems that isolate them in white privilege. They will face challenges beyond my imagination, and I hope they stand against injustice, rooted in deep connection with themselves, others, and the earth. The future depends on our willingness as settlers to step out of behind the walls of our privilege, to bravely dig in and do the work. What awaits on the other side of those walls is not only a glimpse of a sustainable future for us all, but a reconnection to truly who we are and why we're here. Kalam and Tuwari 2005 say that transformation begins in our hearts and radiates outward. In whatever context we find ourselves, stepping into the world with a new vision can heal the past, build a present worth living, and create a future worth fighting for. Chimagwech, as the Gwich'in people say, Hai Cho, and the Inuvialuit say Kuyanini. Thank you for being such a great audience and listening to my story. And in Inuvialuktun, Ariga means how nice. Thank you. promised a song, so I'm going to do that right now. Hello, hello. Right on. Okay. Yeah. I'm happy to share this song away from my script. This song's called Over the Wall. And I told you guys about my connection with Joseph and our connection as a family to him. And I told you he used to call me, and he would speak to me in his language, and he had a way of speaking that was incredibly deep and powerful. And I would listen, and he would cry sometimes, or he would laugh. And in those moments when he was speaking his language, for me, time stopped. And it felt like it was coming from somewhere really deep inside, like his ancestors were speaking through him. And so this song's about my relationship with him and my experiences in the North. I never knew I was born with a silver spoon. Never earned, only forged in the womb. Centuries ago, old men decided that for no reason one is better than the other. Now I know. One day I flew above the Arctic Circle, stepped off the plane and saw the midnight sun. And who was I but just another white guy, stepping off a ship on a land of my own? But they welcomed me with open arms, treated me as one of their own. Things could have gone another way, could have built a wall and hid behind in shame and guilt from the past, living in the fear of what I did not know. Can't have peace till the dealing's done. Truth is told and healing's begun. It's not that hard to see that the moon connects us all. Oh, wind in our breath and the rain that falls brings us together, not apart. It's the bridge we build over the wall. Over the wall. Da 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 da. We still hear your voice over the phone. Your words echo between earth and sky, and time disappears. For that moment, deep in spirit from your ancestral mind. You shared your loss. I think about my own. The lies in my mind begin to fade, and walls start to crumble, and light shines through the cracks. And in that moment, we build a bridge over the wall. Can't have peace till the dealing's done. Truth is told and healing's begun. We're one, no matter where we stand. Our common ground is on this land. What brings us together, not apart, is the bridge we build over the wall. Over the wall. Da 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 da. Thank you.